Well, it was nice to meet you, God. Thank you for the Grand Canyon, and good luck with the apocalypse.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. The third hour of my show every Tuesday is the Ultimate Issues Hour. This has been the case. How many years now? About 7 years? Longer than 7? Wow. We had, we have the male-female hour for longer than that, and the happiness hour even longer than that. Because, folks, the reason for the Ultimate Issues Hour is to give people a map that gives you a destination. Because if you have a map with streets and you don't know where you're going, the map is accurate, but you don't know where you're going. So this is about where we're going. And I don't mean in the hereafter, which I happen to believe in, but that's not what it's about. It's about all the great issues of life. There is a man, it's very rare that I have a guest on the Ultimate Issues Hour, but he has earned that honor, if I may say it in that way. Dinesh D'Souza, who is probably a familiar name to 99.4% of you. The other 0.6% have been in a detention center. That was just a joke, just dark humor, which we'll explain in a moment. Dinesh D'Souza is, of course, one of the best-selling authors. He writes on Ultimate Issues. He's a kindred spirit. He's written a very robust defense of the United States and of religion and of so much more. And, of course, you know his documentary films, which have been major hits in the best sense of the word, both in terms of numbers of people seeing them and in their influence. And he's, and as I said, best-selling author. He has a book that has just come out now, Stealing America. And it is autobiographical, and it is philosophical, and it is already a bestseller, and it's just come out. And there are a lot of big issues that I'd like to talk to Dinesh D'Souza about. Dinesh, we have talked so many times, but I don't think you've ever been in my studio.
I think this may be the first time. So I'm excited to be here, and
well, it's really nice.
Love the show.
Well, thank you for that. It's really nice to see you. It's long overdue. So Dinesh D'Souza, let's get a little... I think people are very, very interested. Well, it's part of your book in any event. So let's get your life in the last 5 years. It goes under the heading, not what I expected.
Well, yes, and I would say it's under the heading of it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the best of times in that I, for the first time, went into the movie business. I made 2016 a film that I think called it right on Obama. I had 2 books that went to #1 on the bestseller list. I made the movie
and
America.
Those books were?
The books were Obama's America, and then also a book called America, which was a companion to the movie America, Imagine a World Without Her. I met a lovely woman. I'm engaged to be married. So I'm happy in...
By the way, I can verify the lovely.
Absolutely.
Let me just say, she's in studio too, and that is accurate.
Yeah, her name is Debbie. She's from Venezuela. We're both immigrants, and we love America.
And you're both hoping to move to Caracas.
No, we're not going to move to Caracas. Life has been hard enough in the United States, my friend. We've got some gangsterism here that can match up with anything that Caracas has to show.
Yes, I know.
Well, it's been the worst of times in that... it started out innocently enough. I wanted to help a friend of mine, Wendy Long, who was running for the Senate in New York. I gave her $10,000, which is allowed by the campaign finance laws. But then I told 2 of my friends to write her a check for $10,000, and I would reimburse them. So this was my offense. I exceeded the...
Well, what position was she running for?
She was running for the U.S. Senate against Kristen Gillibrand.
Okay.
And an uphill campaign. She was 30 points behind in the polls. This was not about her winning. It was about the fact that when I came to America as an immigrant at the age of 17, I fell in with a small gang of people that became a surrogate family for me. And then fast forward 25 years. So she's a good friend of mine. She was in trouble. I wanted to help, and I kind of did it the wrong way. I could have gone through a PAC. There are ways to give money. I gave the wrong way, and boy, did I get nabbed for it.
I have a question on that has troubled me ever since the story came out. That is such a pittance. I mean, when one speaks about what is given to candidates, the candidate had no chance to win. it was totally a gesture of personal friendship, obviously, to anyone. How were you caught?
It's a mystery. There are really only two ways it could have happened. One would be that somebody in Wendy's own campaign, a disgruntled staffer or someone like that, might have blown the whistle on it. The more likely thing is, and this is actually where this is the reason for me suspecting myself to be one of the stupider criminals in the annals of American history, having made a movie that kind of got into Obama's world and into his head. I knew even then that he's a thin-skinned narcissist. And so I should have known that there was a big target on my back, and that the slightest thing would expose me to the risk of them going after me hammer and tong, which is what they did. So I think that they were actually watching me.
Even watching you, they would have had to have access to your bank account.
They would have had access. They would have had to have access to a lot of things, but I discovered once the case opened up that they did. In other words, you'll be amazed, Dennis, when you get involved with the federal system, they will put a squadron of FBI agents on you. Those guys will read all your books. They will check all your bank records. They will investigate your life in a level you can't even imagine. And so imagine as an immigrant how vulnerable that makes you feel. Of course, this was then confirmed when I stepped in the courtroom and I heard the phrase United States of America versus Dinesh D'Souza. Whoa, that sent a chill down my spine.
Right. So I believe number two, not the disgruntled employee. I think that number two, because the disgruntled employee, if existed, would not know that you had given a check to the private donors. They would only know that the donors gave to the campaign.
Yes, that is actually true. As this case moved forward, I'm
sorry. I really am sorry. I have to just add this, and therefore, your story is frightening. See, this is the Ultimate Issues Hour. There were many ultimate issues here. That part of your book, but that the United States of America does this. That under a president, we have an IRS targeting conservative groups, and you, a prominent conservative. There is no other way that anybody would know that such a tiny sum of money in such an insignificant race. I mean, what you did is wrong. You acknowledge that. It's illegal. Fine. Everyone I know has done something wrong in their life, but the United States of America did not come after us. That's what, to me, is frightening. Now, if I shouldn't be frightened, tell me.
No, I do think it is very scary. It shows you the reach and power of the state today. I think my lawyer, a very prominent criminal defense lawyer, Ben Brafman, a liberal Democrat, was very disinclined to believe that this was a selective prosecution. He told me that, Dinesh, this is either a misunderstanding, or he goes, you're a prominent individual. Sometimes DAs like to make a name for themselves. He goes, I'll square this all away. I'll sort it out. I know those guys. And every time he went to talk to them, he'd come back and he'd be baffled. And he'd say, I don't get it. They literally want to convict you of a felony. They want to ruin your life. They want to lock you up for a long period of time. They want to put you out of business. And for him, it took a while for that to sink in. And the more it sank in, the more furious he became. Now, interestingly, part of what he learned was at the same time as my case was making its way, there was a parallel case by, oddly enough, Dennis, another Asian Indian. We Asian Indians appear to specialize in campaign finance violations. Anyway, this guy's name is Chhatwal. He gave $180,000 in straw donations to a whole slew of Democratic candidates, including Hillary. Now, unlike me, he was also guilty of corruption and witness tampering. The FBI recorded him trying to coach witnesses to lie. So here's a classic case of why the campaign finance laws were passed. And this guy gets no prison, no confinement.
That's fascinating. That is absolutely fascinating. The book, which is fascinating and important, is Stealing America. Now, let me tell you what the subtitle is. What my experience with criminal gangs, that is, in prison,
yes,
taught me about Obama, Hillary, and the Democratic Party. Folks, do you realize that if there weren't campaign finance reform laws, which never should have been passed to begin with, none of this would have happened? All he had to do was give $30,000 to his friend who's running for Senate. Why can't you do that in the United States of America? See the George Will course on that subject at Prager University. Hi, everybody. This is Dennis Prager, and this is the Ultimate Issues Hour, and I have a special guest, Dinesh D'Souza. Brand new book, and it's just literally just come out, Stealing America. He was confined for giving two people $10,000 each to reimburse them for a donation they gave to a friend of his who was running an impossible campaign. It's in the realm of things that people get jailed for in the United States. It is a little above jaywalking.
Well, the criminals themselves were shocked when I told them.
That's it. That's what I want to get into. Okay, so all right. I just want to make it clear because it has troubled my wife and myself since then. You don't know how the government found out, except because it's so trivial that you gave a check to. Had you given cash, by the way, never would have, I assume, been known.
Right. I don't know how they found out.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So what is the sentence you are given?
I'm given a fine, $30,000. I'm given 5 years of probation. I'm given a rather hefty community service project, i.e. 1 day a week for 5 years. A whole day, 8 hours a day, teaching English to immigrants. And on top of that, 8 months in the lockup in a confinement center, overnight confinement. You can be out in the day to work. And I completed that at the end of May this year.
So what did you learn? Well, first of all, who were you locked up with at night?
Well, this was a bit of a discovery for me. I was actually jubilant on the day of my sentence because I had beaten the Obama administration's effort to send me to federal prison. I got the confinement center as an alternative. But it turns out that in federal prison, it's white-collar prison, and it's mainly white-collar guys. A dentist, a mayor, a doctor who defrauded Medicare, people who play Scrabble all day, and they have an activities director in white-collar prison. Now, in the confinement center, no, because the confinement center is a receptacle for people who have completed prison, and you could, whatever the crime, you come into the confinement center for 30, 60, or 90 days as a transition back to society. So we had drug smugglers, coyotes, rapists, armed robbers, murderers, the whole gamut of criminals, about 120 of us sleeping dormitory style in an open area.
Dormitory style in an open area. They would look at you and say, "What are you in for?"
Yeah, initially I stayed to myself. I was a little nervous about all the internecine gang stuff. But after a while, I began to relax. I began to open up, talk to these guys. And yeah, one of the first questions is, what do you do? And
it's all dark humor. Forgive me, my dear listeners. But I'm cracking up at the thought that a guy who was... put aside rapists because you can't joke about that at all, obviously, but a coyote or, some violent crime or smuggling people into the country, and they look at you, I'll bet they didn't understand your offense.
Completely, because to them, crime is about stealing. It's about benefiting yourself. It's about getting something out of nothing. And so they were like, what did you do? And I'm like, I gave money. And they're like, you took somebody else's money? I'm like, no, I gave my money. And so the first guy's reaction was, can you give me money? Can you raise money for me? They were incredulous, and then they all started laughing. And so after a while, it was a standing joke that I was in there. I was a misfit, and they all knew it. And after a while, I learned their world, which was very eye-opening.
Okay, so that's why it's an Ultimate Issues Hour. What did you learn about their world?
Well,
some of the lessons.
Of course, I had, number one, I had seen The Shawshank Redemption, so I had this idea that they're all going to steadfastly maintain their innocence. Instead, I discovered a more interesting response. The general view in there is, we did it, we're guilty, but we're the small fry. We're the stupid criminals because we got caught. That's why we're here. The big fry don't get caught. The big fry are out there. The big fry are never pursued by the system because they run the system. And I actually, Dennis, at this point was reminded of an anecdote in Augustine's City of God. He talks about the story of Alexander the Great and the pirate. Alexander the Great is informed that there's a nasty pirate who's raiding the sea and boarding ships. So he summons the fellow, and he goes, where do you get this crazy idea of raiding ships? And the pirate goes, I got it from you. And the pirate goes, because I have one ship, I'm called a pirate because you have a whole navy and a whole army, and you're doing the same thing on a much larger scale. You're considered a great emperor. And Augustine comments on that, and he says that gangs are small kingdoms, and kingdoms, he's referring to the Roman Empire, are nothing but gangs on a large scale. And so this got me thinking about whether there's a relationship between the criminal underworld and American politics.
Go on.
And so I began to discover more about these guys, and I discovered they live at the very elemental level. Most of them, you can't talk to them about the Constitution or the American dream. They talk about food and sleep and money and sex, and that's it. To them, human nature is driven by primal motives. And this may seem obvious to you, Dennis, but to me it was a discovery because I had lived in the rarefied intellectual world. I've written about the American founding and the American ideals. But what I realized they were saying to me is, Dinesh, that's all a little bit of a squid-like cloud of rationalization, that you need to look at the way the world works in a little more Machiavellian terms, not just the way things ought to be, but also the way things actually are. And so I began to I had a little bit of a crisis of conscience. I was asking myself, have I actually misread America? Am I defending some idealized America against other countries' grim realities? Is my patriotism, in a sense, based on a mistake? Shouldn't I be comparing like with like? Is this the real America that I've never seen before and I'm getting to encounter for the first time? Do I need to sort of re-examine what it means to be an American? Because I had seen in my own life, some of the shamelessness of these gangsters was mirrored in me, because I had seen the system act in ways that caused me to have the same, pardon me, up yours attitude to the system that all these guys had in the confinement center. So I found myself to some degree becoming a little bit like them.
So what did you answer to your question, have I idealized America?
So what I've realized is that in politics, we tend to look at politics as a debate. The Republicans believe in liberty. The Democrats believe in equality. We want equality of rights. They want equality of outcomes. And I began to look at American politics, Obamacare, as being not just a debate. There's an element of that, but also as being a scam, very much of a ruse, something that you put over the American people in the same way that a gang guy who wants to break into your house, he's got to convince you to lift the latch off the door. So he's going to give you a ruse. He's going to fool you into doing that.
That's so interesting. You know, I have called the welfare state a Ponzi scheme for about 15 years. And I mean it literally. I don't mean it just because I don't like it. So it's just, this is very important stuff. The book, like you hear Dinesh D'Souza speak, you want to read the book. I mean, it's an inevitability. The book is up at DennisPrager.com. It is titled Stealing America. We'll continue Ultimate Issues Hour at the Dennis Prager Show. Hi, everybody. Welcome back, or welcome to the show. I'm Dennis Prager. Third hour Tuesday is the Ultimate Issues Hour. A man who thinks about ultimate issues as much as I do is Dinesh D'Souza. He is in studio. I've had him on many times, but always by phone. I must say, in this case, I do prefer it. Many times it doesn't matter to me whether it's phone or in studio. Sometimes I actually prefer phone because sometimes I want the interview to be so impersonal that we don't have to look at each other. I'm serious. I want it to be solely on the issues. I have a method to this whole thing, but in this case, I'm delighted he's here. A book that of his just published, Stealing America, and it's about his. Among other things, is it fair to say it is conclusions about life and about America that you drew from being in the federal detention center?
Yes, it gave me a new angle at looking at politics. I had previously seen American politics as in intellectual terms. I mean, look at the way, for example, that the Republican candidates today are all trying to educate Obama. Their assumption is Obama doesn't get it. They're always trying to tell him how the world really is. Hey, Obama, Putin used to be a KGB officer. Hey, Obama, when the mullahs say they want a bomb, they probably do. Hey, Obama, you shouldn't have confiscatory tax rates. Not good for the economy. And apparently this Obama education project has been with us for 7 years while making no headway whatsoever. So then you begin to question the premise. Is it really true that Obama doesn't get it? The most well-informed, well-briefed man in the world? Or is it that Obama is up to something else? And that's really where my light goes on. I think that these guys are up to something else. Hillary, too. And so this has caused me to take, you may say, a little bit of the darker view of politics and look at it a little bit more from what's in it for whom.
Go on.
Right. So let's look at a couple of examples briefly. Obamacare. So I remember the way Obamacare was packaged. Obama goes to the American people and he basically goes, hey guys, I got a ruse, right? Why don't you and me gang up against the insurance companies? They're fat cats. They got a bunch of money. Let's go hit them up. Let's make them do crazy stuff like insure us for things we had before we even got insurance, right? Pre-existing conditions. And a lot of the American people go, that's right, Obama. You represent us. You go give it to them. But now the plot thickens because Obama then goes with the insurance company CEOs, shuts the door, and says, guys, I got a deal for you. True, I am trying to increase federal control over you guys, and you won't like that. But I'm also forcing millions of Americans who don't want insurance to buy it. I'm going to make them. And that means millions of customers for you and hundreds of millions of dollars of profits for you. So you, who would normally be my opponents on this, need to be my allies. You need to buy ads promoting Obamacare. You remember the insurance companies lined up behind Obamacare. Why? Because it was not a conspiracy between Obama and the American people against insurance companies. It was actually a conspiracy between Obama and the insurance companies against the American people.
Agreed entirely. So what is darker now than before?
I think what's darker now is a recognition that what these progressives are up to is not a debate about equality. That is their ruse. That is their pitch. That is their scam in order to cover their scheme with a halo. There's nothing better than covering up a ruse with a halo. If you've watched movies like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, the bad guys always try to come up with something that throws people off. And so this is something that Obama and Hillary both learned from Alinsky. Alinsky, who had hung out with the Capone mob, learned all kinds of intimidation schemes, but then he got the idea, what if I dress it up as I'm the good guy? I'm not the bad guy. I'm not stealing. I'm actually returning stolen goods. And so suddenly we find that social justice becomes the cover, the rhetoric, covering up something that is actually a grab for money and power. So what I try to do in this book is look at the way in which progressivism is trying to appropriate to itself the great wealth and power of the United States, all in the name of justice.
Wow. I mean, okay, I have a lot to say, but I'll say very little. But there is a darkness out there. I'm not a cynic. I'm not a conspiratorialist, but I understand what you're saying, and the insurance company analogy is just right on. The book is Stealing America, Dinesh D'Souza, up at DennisPrager.com. We'll continue in a moment. This is absolutely, I'm telling you folks, the guy is totally mesmerizing. And I'm fascinated as a result. Dinesh D'Souza is my guest in studio. Stealing America is his latest book. In effect, what he learned when he was placed in the detention center for the crime of giving two people $10,000 to reimburse them for helping a friend of his who had no chance to win in a New York State Senate race. He should never, the whole thing is sick. It should never have been a crime to begin with. You should have been able to give $30,000 to a friend. It's complete suppression of free speech that you can't use your money. The New York Times can dominate a discourse, but you can't, in your way, through money, give somebody. Anyway, George Will dissects that at two Prager University courses. But I want to go back to you. You get a dark view here. So in prison, you start seeing a metaphor from gang life into political life. And in particular, the astonishing grab for power that is on the left. Am I rephrasing you correctly?
Absolutely, that's right.
Okay. So my question is, I'm in total agreement, and I always tell people, no matter what you can say, remember one thing. Democrats want more power, and Republicans want less power. I mean, just tell that to kids. And unless you think power is a good thing and it doesn't corrupt, we're in trouble. So is the desire for power as darkly motivated as you're implying, or is it ideological? We can do so much more good with more power.
Well, I think for different progressives would give a different answer to that question, and I'll answer it by comparing Obama and Hillary. Now, I believe that there is a gangster streak in both of them, but it operates differently. For Obama, the end or the goal is ideological. He wants to redistribute, you may say, global wealth and power.
Yes.
But he's willing to do gangsterish things to get there.
Right.
He's willing to overlook the immigration laws, ignore the courts, ignore the Congress.
Ignore the Constitution.
Let's call it a gangsterism of means.
Right.
The Clintons are different. I think for the Clintons, gangsterism is the end. What they want to be is the mafia bosses of the United States. Now, again, I distinguish between Bill and Hillary. Bill's desires are limited by the circumference of his appetites. So for Bill, if he's top dog in a big office, everyone thinks he's the greatest, he has women around, he's happy. That's the extent of his ambition. Hillary, on the other hand, wants the kind of, you may call it, Michael Corleone type of power, which is to say she wants basically to be directing things. And so for Hillary, I think she has taken Tammany Hall gangsterism into a global scale that is almost frightening to behold.
All right. So I agree with every word you said. And my listeners know if I didn't, I would very respectfully say so. So the gangster analogy on the left of the accumulating more and more power, no matter what it takes to do so, is either idealistic, as in the case of Obama, or simply personal, as in the case of the Clintons. Again, I'm restating. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Yes. Okay. So these are, in effect, things that you learned in the prison. Did you learn something else that you mentioned to me that I'd like you to comment on, the money-making aspect of prisons?
Right. So the thing to realize is prisons are based upon promoting the notion of justice. And by the way, so is liberalism, right? What is the core virtue of liberalism? It's justice. The core virtue of conservatism is liberty. We're always talking about freedom, but if you listen to Obama and Hillary, it's the fair share, it's social justice. That is their thing. They're hanging their hat on the morality of justice. Now, once you get into the prison system, you get a little different picture. So, a guy next to my bunk, actually this was one of the few white-collar guys, and he had come from one of the California federal prisons where the warden kept hounding him to get his GED. Now, this was a guy who was actually nabbed in a kind of insider trading scandal, so he was working for a big investment house. He had actually never finished high school, but he went to work at a stockbroking company at a young age. He learned the ropes. So he told the guy, I'm an educated man. I'm working for a big investment house. I read books every day. I don't need my GED. But the warden said, no, you need to have your GED. And eventually the guy figures out that for every GED that an inmate completes in prison, the prison gets $2,500. So the warden was insistent on this guy completing his GED because he was an educated man. Obviously, if an illiterate guy tries to take his GED, he might fail. No $2,500. This guy was a sure thing because he was already educated. So they had no interest in his welfare. Basically, they were bilking the taxpayer. And here's the point, that it's not that people are stealing from the government. This is stealing by the government of taxpayer money. At the end of the day, stealing America is stealing from the American people. And everything else is a ruse to hide that fact. Even when you look at the schemes operated by the Clintons, for example, ultimately, how do the Clintons make money in Haiti? There's not a lot of money in Haiti. Well, there is money in Haiti. It's called aid money, and it's flowing to Haiti. A lot of it is U.S. government money. Now, Hillary Clinton is Secretary of State, and Bill Clinton is in charge of the UN organization dispensing aid. Talk about an unbelievable scheme. This is like Bonnie and Clyde finding themselves in an unbelievable position where they can intercept. They're in between this enormous flow of aid and these poor Haitians. Well, guess what? Somehow at the end of the day, a lot of that money ends up with the Clintons or in the Clinton Foundation, and there are poor Haitians protesting outside the offices of Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation saying, you stole our money. Where are the billions of dollars that were supposed to be coming our way? We haven't seen them. You have them. But now the media doesn't cover that. Or they cover it very lightly. And as a result, the American people don't know that the Clintons are not just stealing from rich people, they're also stealing from poor people.
The wealthy American who votes left, though, is voting on the Obama idealistic side because they don't get the benefits that the Clintons get personally. Is that fair to say?
I think it is fair. I think it is fair to say, although I think there are powerful people in academia and the media and so on who support the Clintons because they derive other important benefits from the scheme.
All right, you'll explain that when we come back. Stealing America is the book. Dinesh D'Souza, the author. I'm Dennis Prager. This is truly worthy. I wish I could say this is part one of a 10-part interview. But I would love a part two. Dinesh D'Souza is my guest. This is the Ultimate Issues Hour, third hour on Tuesdays. He's written this book that just came out, Stealing America. It's partially autobiographical, and the insights that he has gained from this time in the detention center for the unbelievable crime of supporting a candidate with $20,000 through giving it to two others because they couldn't give more than $10,000. That's what he was sentenced for. Are you still in the sentence? Is this over?
Well, no, I have a 5-year. It's an ongoing.
So are you teaching the?
Yes.
You must be learning from that too.
I am. I'm actually learning a lot about the Hispanic population because that's a population that I had previously had no exposure to.
Yes, I would love to have you on. Seriously,
I'd love to do that. No,
okay,
let's plan to do that. I'd love to do that.
We'll pay your gas. You just drive up from San Diego.
Happy to do it.
Okay, just looking at the reactions of everybody in the room to the we'll pay for your gas. Oh, I don't even think we're allowed to do that, actually, right? Yeah, we've never done that. Yeah. Now you see, now I'm going to be investigated.
That's right. The maximum allowable reimbursement is 50 cents.
Yes, exactly. So in the minute to go, your analysis is so unfortunately devastating about the love for power and really a gangster type mentality that is either the end, Clintonian, or the means, Obamian, to the end. So what's in it for? We understand why the poor will be seduced. They'll help me. They'll give me more money. Fine. Why is the middle class or upper middle class intellectual so supportive?
Yeah, for years I was puzzled by why journalists or academicians who are not getting money out of Hillary or Obama, why they are willing to play such a sycophantic role. And I think it's for the same reason that the poor white guy in the South fought the Civil War. He had no slaves. He didn't have anything material to get out of it. But he got the psychic satisfaction of knowing that he was part of a racial class structure in which even the poor, stupidest white guy was on the top of the most educated black guy. In other words, it gave him a status that he wouldn't have otherwise. And that's why he was defending that racial caste system. Progressivism empowers these men of letters, these scribblers, and gives them power and a feeling of self-importance. That's, I believe, why they do it.
Part 2 will come up. We have to do it. Dinesh, good luck. It's a delight to meet you. Delight to meet you. This was just absolutely exhilarating. The book is Stealing America. Dinesh D'Souza. It is up at DennisPrager.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.